Whoopi Goldberg's comments, it's interesting. She is a black woman, but she just does claim some Jewish blood in her family lineage and has often identified as Jewish. Her original name, Karen Johnson, and then she took on the name Whoopi Goldberg. But it's one thing to take the name Whoopi. It'd be an unusual name to give your child. So that was a chosen name for whatever reason. I don't know the history. But Goldberg, very evident Jewish name. So she obviously does not have a Jewish mother and father. But in some of her statements over the years, she has identified as Jewish, although not an observant Jewish person. So she would understand in that context that you can be a Jew and be white or be black or be Asian, right? In any case, she made these unfortunate comments the other day on The View. And of course, there's been a massive firestorm over it. So here's what she had to say.
The Holocaust isn't about race.
No,
It's not about race. It's about man's inhumanity to man. But these are two white groups of people.
Well, how do we have to black
They
people
didn't see them as white.
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other.
All right, let's do the same with slavery. Blacks have enslaved whites. Whites have enslaved blacks. Blacks have enslaved blacks. Whites have enslaved whites. So the general phenomenon of slavery transcends race. So let's just talk about man's inhumanity to man. Well, no. Because in America, it was definitely racial. In other words, the Africans, the blacks, were looked at as inferior people. All right? It was. You can't just say it's man's inhumanity against man. You miss the biggest issue. This was not random inhumanity against man, and it just happened to be people who were Jews. No, this was a systematic attempt to exterminate all Jews in Europe. And ultimately, the goal would have been all Jews in the world, if possible. And we'll see in a moment what Hitler's own views were about Jews and race. Okay, further comment from Whoopi.
The American experience tends to be based on skin.
Yes. And so that is what race means to me. When you talk about being a racist, I was saying you can't call this racism. This was evil. This wasn't based on the skin. You couldn't tell who was Jewish. They had to delve deeply to figure it out.
You didn't have to delve deeply. You had to delve deeply to hide your Jewishness, because Jewish identity was well known and the Jewish community was well known. And it was not a secret among many German Jews. In fact, many German Jews, it's been said over the years, were more German than they were Jewish, and yet they were still recognized as Jews. You could even be in a church baptized, but if you were a Jew, you were going to the concentration camps. Yeah, and there were identity papers and all of this, and it was known. So in any case, there's an outcry over this, and Whoopi Goldberg issues this apology. She tweets it out, but then she reads it as well on The View.
I said that the Holocaust wasn't about race, and it was instead about man's inhumanity to man. But it is indeed about race, because Hitler and the Nazis considered Jews to be an inferior race. Now, words matter, and mine are no exception. I regret my comments, as I said, and I stand corrected. I also stand with the Jewish people, as they know, and y'all know, because I've always done that.
All right, so the comments were severe, were ugly, were ill-informed. She did give an apology, clearly. Was it right for The View to suspend her? I don't watch The View. I don't know what their overall ethics are. I don't believe that she should be fired upon apologizing and then really educating herself. They had on someone from the ADL, I believe, Anti-Defamation League, to talk about these issues. So true repentance for something done wrong, either in ignorance or willful, is you go in the other direction. You go in the other direction to fix things. You educate yourself better. You help others learn and get educated. It's just a good thing. That's a positive thing. In today's cancel culture, you do something far less than that. You, in some playful way with your friends, everybody's getting made up and putting on these silly outfits, and you put on blackface and you don't realize it's offensive to people. And then 15 years later, you get fired from a job over it. That's outrageous. If it came out 15 years ago, Whoopi Goldberg made these comments, no one knew it. Now it comes out today and she's not had a history of that. And she publicly repudiates the comments. You don't get fired over that. But we shall see how this plays out. To suspend her, yeah, that makes sense. In other words, slap on the wrist. And we want everyone to know how much we abhor these comments and then back in good favor. But as far as the race issue, you have to understand that being Jewish is a religious thing, potentially, and or an ethnic thing. And in that sense, a racial thing. So you could be a traditional Jew, practicing Judaism, learned it from your ancestors going back, all right? You could be a Gentile who converts to Judaism, and now you become part of the Jewish people and your kids are considered Jewish, or, the kids that you have after that are considered Jewish, or you could be someone born into a Jewish family, but no longer practicing Judaism, having any connection to Judaism, being an out-and-out atheist, and you're still a Jew. All right, so I want to read this to you. This goes back to 1919, Adolf Hitler, and he certainly built on this mentality in the years that followed. So this is from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. And September 16th, 1919, Hitler issues his first written comment on the so-called Jewish question. In the statement, he defined the Jews as a race and not a religious community, characterized the effect of a Jewish presence as a, quote, race tuberculosis of the peoples, and identified the initial goal of the German government to be discriminatory legislation against Jews. The, quote, ultimate goal must definitely be the removal of the Jews altogether. Hitler's years in Vienna, 1908-1913, and his military service were important stages for his development of a comprehensive racist ideology. There's a discussion on a British TV show. There's an author who's written about this, himself a Jewish atheist, and he weighs in on the question. Listen to what he has to say.
The problem with it is there's so many issues, and I'm a fan of Whoopi Goldberg, always been a fan of her, but there are so many issues what she's saying. It does reveal an awful lot about the confusions that people have around anti-Semitism that are explored in my book. And one of the principal things going on here is the resistance to the idea that anti-Semitism is racism. And I think, what does Whoopi Goldberg think it is? Well, I think what a lot of people think it is religious intolerance. And the problem with that is, I'm an atheist, and the Gestapo would have shot me tomorrow. My great-uncle Arno, who died in the Warsaw Ghetto, was not an observant Jew. And indeed, it's not just the Holocaust. Now, neo-Nazis marching with torches saying the Jews will not replace us in Charlottesville, they would not ask a Jew whether he kept kosher before they set light to their house. They're not interested in faith, and the Nazis were not interested in faith. They were interested in racial purity. That's what the Nuremberg laws were. They were racial purity laws.
But that comment suggests that there are people who think racism is only about the colour of your skin.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's a specific thing that I think is going on here, which is, Jews, the whiteness of Jews is a very complex thing. I use this phrase in the book, it's a bit early for this, but anyway, called Schrodinger's white. So what I mean by that is Jews are seen as white or non-white depending on the politics of the observer, right? So far-right groups, and for years and centuries, have seen Jews as not part of the white races, absolutely part of Hitler's project to say Jews are not part of the Aryan white races. But meanwhile, on the other side, on the far left, the association of Jews, which is a racist thing with power and privilege, makes them kind of super white. And what that ends up with, it's similar to be honest, in the Black Lives Matter thing with saying all lives matter, because it takes away from the specifics of the racism to something very bland and general, like man's inhumanity to man. Okay, but what's going on here is actually a very particular type of genocide. She talked on Stephen Colbert's show about two sides fighting. This was not two sides fighting. This was an ethnic group being marked out to be destroyed by a military-industrial machine.
So the thing that is extra disturbing about the Whoopi comments is that she dug her heels in further on Colbert and expressed and articulated the real error, the real problem in her understanding. Now, I take her apology for what it is, and hopefully, with true repentance, with wanting to make things right, you go out of your way to address things in a positive, constructive, and educational way. That was David Baddiel, Jewish comedian. When he mentioned his book, I had not seen his writings relative to the Jewish people. Perhaps it's his book, Jews Don't Count, but I'm not sure. But his comments are right on point. And of course, there are Middle Eastern Jews, which would be the most original Jews, right? There are African Jews, there are Asian Jews, there are white Jews, right? So we come in many shapes, forms. In that sense, it is not just one race, meaning skin color, okay? But ethnicity and skin color are not always synonymous. And if you target a group based on its ethnicity, that is racism. This was an attempt to exterminate the Jewish race. Stop there. Full stop. That is the reality, and that is the fact, and that is the truth. Hey, friends, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, click on one of the boxes on the screen, check out another one of our videos, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. You know, we discovered that about 60% of you that are watching our videos aren't subscribers. So subscribe today. Doesn't cost you a dime. And if you want to support our work, Line of Fire, and all the things that we do, follow one of the links on the screen below.